It's great to see you.
Charlie, it's great to see you. I mean, I've been in Omaha, and I think I've made, prior to the last week, I probably made 2 plane flights in 2 years. I mean, once to see my sister. I mean, just free at last.
You're 91.
I'm 91.
Good health.
I couldn't be in better health. It's a little discouraging to me that my partner in business life, everything else, Charlie Munger, is 98.
Still going strong?
I'm still the kid.
You have a successor in place?
We have a successor in place, but he's not warming up.
You're not ready to
I'm
go.
still in overtime, but I'm out there.
You still tap dance to work?
I tap dance to work, Charlie. I've always been happy in the work, but I've never been happier. I've got the most interesting, to me, job in the world. I've got people you wouldn't believe that support me. It takes about 4 or 5. I mean, it takes a village to a degree, but I've got 3 people sitting right down within 20 feet of me, or 30 feet. My assistant, Deb Bosonic, the fellow that handles all the trades I tell him to do in the morning, and money and billions flow in and out, and he takes care of it all. Mark Millard, and I've got a chief financial officer, Mark Hamburg, who knows more than most of the finance offices and legal offices and everything else in the world. And we've all worked together for dozens of years, and we like each other, and everybody helps me. Couldn't be better.
Choosing who you work with.
It's everything. I mean, I write a little bit about the annual report, but the choosing what you do and who you do it with. You're gonna, if you're like me, you're gonna spend 70 years or something. My assistant hasn't worked the whole time with me, but she went to work for Berkshire when she was 17, and she still looks 17, and now she'll be with us 50 years here pretty soon, and they know me forward and backwards, and they accept my eccentricities. They help me.
What would they be?
But I would say this: if you take Mark Millard, I walk in the morning, or I call him first, and I tell him exactly. I've already done it for today. I tell him exactly what I want to do, and he does it all day. And some days, a good many days, he moves billions of dollars, purchases and sales. He takes care of the whole thing.
When do you make those decisions?
I think all the time. I'm on the clock at Berkshire all the time.
Walk me through a typical day.
Well, a typical day is I get to work at I get up usually at a few minutes before 7, so I can catch it's the 7 o'clock news and network news in Omaha, and so I get up a few minutes before that, and sometimes I turn on the network news. I always turn on CNBC, and I look at what prices are doing and what's happening in Europe and what's happening in Japan, and I then about the market opens our time, 8:30. Although we're doing maybe things in Japan or Germany too, but and I call Mark at 8 with the market opening at 8:30, and I tell him exactly what to do for the day, and I probably won't change it during the day, and it's usually a percentage of something. I will say buy or sell X percent of the trading volume, and I'll give him a list of things. If there's a limit of price, I'd give him the price. And then he does it all day. And I don't need to check with him. And he sometimes does billions of dollars worth of business. He buys the treasury bills, which we, in the last couple of years,
Have a bunch of.
we probably bought $5 billion every Monday. And I would guess that we might be the biggest buyer. And just week after week after week after week.
You made your first investment when you were 11 years old?
In 1942, 80 years ago, I took $114.75, every penny I'd saved, and I bought 3 shares of City Service Preferred. And City Service was a pretty well-known name now and then. In fact, in 1920, City Service, I think, was the 4th largest company in the United States in terms of number of shareholders. It was a big company, and so it had a preferred stock that was selling at 38 that had started skipping the dividends during the Depression. So it accumulated dividends on it of $60 or $70. And of course, it was par value of $100 too, and it was selling at 38. And at breakfast one morning, I follow those stocks every day, but then I made my plunge, and I had roughly this amount of money, so I bought 3. I don't remember this precisely, but I think I told my dad in the morning, "Now, let's move, Dad." Pop, I call it. But let's move, Pop.
But you felt the thrill of it then.
Oh, I've been reading about it and following it. The whole market. I really had read every book in the Yuma Public Library that was on the stock market.
By 11?
By 11, I'll guarantee you. And some of them twice. I started out reading the ones in my dad's office, and I just loved to read. I mean, I read other things too, but I knew more when I was 11 than I know now. I mean, in terms of the actual mechanics of the stock. I mean, I don't know what happens when I put an order in now. I mean, it gets in the machinery of the way orders are executed now. I would know if I sat and worked in a trading room for a day or two, but I don't really know the mechanics as well of what happens when an order is processed today as I did when I was 11.
What is it you enjoyed the most about it? Because you don't pick stocks, you pick companies.
Yeah, but when I was 11, I picked stocks. I had the whole wrong idea. I was interested in watching stocks, and I thought stocks were things that went up and down, and I charted them. I read books on technical analysis. I read Edwards and McGee. I think that was the classic then. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of pages. And I read that whole thing over and over again. I read Garfield, Drew, I read everything. And I thought the first 8 years, I thought the important thing was to predict what a stock would do and predict the stock market. And then I read Ben Graham, when I was 19 or 20. And I realized that I was doing it exactly the wrong way. But it didn't hurt that I had that background and everything. And I rejiggered my mind when I read the book, The Intelligent Investor. And from that point, I never bought another stock. I bought businesses that happened to be publicly traded. But I became an owner of a business. And I did not care whether a stock went up or down the next day or the next week or the next month or the next year. And I didn't have any idea what it would do. I didn't know what the stock market would do, but I knew businesses. I knew something.
I've asked people about your genius, whatever we describe it.
No, I'm a bright guy who's terribly interested in what he does. So I've spent a lifetime doing it. And I've surrounded myself with people that bring out the best in me. And you don't need to be a genius in what I do. That's the good thing about it. If I went into physics or a whole lot of other subjects, I'd be an also-ran. But I am in a game that you don't need. You probably need 120 points of IQ, but 170 doesn't do any better than 120. It may do worse, probably do worse, but you don't really need brains.
What do you need?
You need the right orientation. 90% of the people, I'm pulling a figure out of the air, but 90% of the people that buy stocks don't think of them the right way. They think about something that they hope goes up next week. And they think about the market as something they hope goes up. And if it's down, they feel worse. I feel better.
And you think about?
Pardon?
And what do you think about?
I think about what the company's going to be worth 10 or 20 years from now. And I hope it goes down when I buy it because I'll buy more.
Do you have a competitive spirit, clearly?
Yeah.
Clearly.
Well, but you got to be careful about what you compete in. It's a good thing I don't have a competitive spirit in chess or or football or anything like that. No, I'm an observer there. I enjoy watching things like that, but I try to keep my competitive spirit in a game where I can win.
Do you have a killer instinct?
Nah, not exactly. I've got. I wouldn't call it a killer instinct, but I do know this. When I want to do something, I always want to do it big.
What does that mean?
I put my whole net worth in City Service Preferred.
$120.
$114.75. And I put my whole net worth in, and I've never, since that day, and March 11th, 1942, I have never had less than 80% of my money in American business. You can call them stocks.
Or equities.
But I see them as American business. I've owned a piece of American business for at least 80% at all times. I don't want to own anything else. I want to own a home and things my family wants and all that. But owning 5 homes doesn't mean anything to me because I'm going to be happy in one home, and there's a certain amount of things that go wrong with everything. And if I got 2 homes, I know I've got more problems and I don't have more happiness.
What brings you the happiness?
Oh, that I would have to be honestly say that what makes me happiest is what I'm doing. I enjoy 2 things about it. One, I know I'll win over time. That doesn't mean I'll beat everybody else or anything like that. But I'm in a game that's very, very, very easy if you have the right lessons in your mind about what you're buying. I'm not buying stocks. I'm buying pieces of overwhelmingly American business. And I'm happy when that's when I'm doing it. I'm happy when stocks are going down. I'm happier when stocks are going down because I can buy more of them with the same amount of money. I'd be happy if I was a farmer. I'd want farmland to go down so I could buy more acreage. If I was, it just makes sense. And I'll tell you the second thing I really like. I like being trusted by people, and I would rather do what I do with partners than do it sitting in a room myself, even though I might make more money that way.
You like the idea that people are trusting you with their savings.
Yeah. They just say, look, I've saved money. I don't know what to do with it. And
I trust you.
And they give it to me. And they don't, most of them give it to me. Certainly in the original days, but even now to an unusual degree, give it to me with the idea that it's for the lifetime. And then most of them, they've done this a long time ago. Most of them give it away when they get through. They never quit saving. And of course, I'm sort of their savings machine.
They save it and then give it to you.
Yeah, and then they say, keep it, and just keep building it. And they don't do it with the idea they're going to retire when they're 65 and then build great castles or anything like that. They just are basically, a few do. A few spend some money later on. But overwhelmingly, if they've been saving when they were 25 and saved a little money, gave it to me, they're still saving. There were 11 doctors that we met at a hilltop house. There was one friend of mine named Bill Angle, and he was trying to get these other doctors to join with me. So I don't know when it was 1958 or 9. He invited 12 doctors to this dinner at Hilltop House. He had me come. And he basically said, this is my friend Warren, and if you got any brains, you'll give him some money. And so we spent the evening, and these guys were all probably in their low 30s. And 11 of the 12 put in $10,000 each. The 12th said to Bill, he said, well, what happens if we lose our money? And my friend Bill, never forget it, he said, well, dummy. He says, we'll form another partnership. That was the guy that didn't invest. He got reminded of this by the other 11 for the rest of his life. And those people stuck with me. And one of them died in the last year. It's a friend of mine to the end, at 101. And his name was Stan Truls. And he came from a little town, about 300 people near Omaha. And he became an ophthalmologist and a super wonderful guy in every way. I mean, he helped all those fellow doctors, and you couldn't find a finer guy than Stan. But 2 of the other 11, 2 of them are still alive. And the money and the amount of money, I mean, they haven't built, they could have done anything. I mean, they could have lived bigger than anybody in Nebraska, but they went with the lives they liked. And
so have you.
Yeah.
So have you.
Yeah.
You live in the same house you've lived in for...
I've lived in the same house. I bought it in 1958. So 63 or 64 years. Quarter of the life of the country. I've lived a quarter of the life of the country in one house. And I like being 5 minutes from the office, too. I mean, just think if I'd had a 35-minute commute. I've gone to the same office now since January of 62. So it's been 60 years. And let's say I save 30 minutes every day in commute, each way.
Let me turn to the stockholders' letter that you wrote for 2021.
Well, that letter was, I started that letter in my head. I've already started next year's letter in my head. But I started that letter in my head, we'll say.
Because you can begin to see what 2022...
I know what I'm going to write about it, and then I just have to, it keeps forming. But that isn't a newsletter that comes out, it's what I want to talk to I was forged it originally in terms of my sisters who had practically all their money in Berkshire. They trusted me 60 years ago, and they just put it all in. And they're very smart. My older sister Doris died here recently, but both of them very, very smart and interested in financial matters, but they're not a nut like me. And so they got other interests too. Basically, they've handed me all their money, and they don't want to hear day to day.
So you tell them what's happened in the last year.
Once a year, it's like I sit down with them and tell them, here's what might be interesting to you, and I'm doing that all year in my mind, and I've done it. I know what I'm going to talk about next year unless something changes in a dramatic way.
Can you tell me what that is?
No. But I can tell you this. Last night, I went to Music Man, and among the people who went with me was my friend Carol Loomis. Carol was 92.
She's a great journalist and a good writer.
She starts editing. I send her the report, which I think is perfect always at the time. I send her the report in usually December, and she keeps sending back, and she kind of won't let me send it out without checking to make sure that I haven't left out a comma someplace or right up to the end. But so the report, although it's dated February 20th, that report basically was written. It was written in my head for a long time, but it was what I thought was finished probably in December. And then Carol tells me there's a lot of work to do.
No big investments in 2021 because you didn't see anything that met your requirement.
Yeah, and I wrote the report, and people can go to berkshirehathaway.com and they can see exactly what I think and have thought for 40-some years of each report.
But for you to make a big investment, what do you need to know?
I need to know that I think that Berkshire Hathaway is going to be worth more money someday down the road. Not tomorrow. I want it to go down if I'm buying something. And I would say this: the world has changed a lot since that report was written. But the world changed a lot in 2000, 2 years ago when the pandemic. Just think about it.
Because of the pandemic.
The pandemic. It's almost exactly 2 years later. An event happened 2 years ago, and we didn't know exactly what it was. We didn't know what the financial result would be. We didn't know what the physical result was. We just didn't know. But when I wrote my report in February, I didn't know the pandemic was going to hit, a week later. And I didn't know that the American financial system was on the brink of, chaos. A few weeks later, and if somebody wants to read a great book that just came out, it's a sensational book called $1 Trillion Triage that tells on a day-by-day basis what was going on in March that were, in my opinion, Jay Powell, he matched Paul Volcker in terms of doing things that needed to be done that day, and it's a great day-by-day report. The book just came out a couple of days ago.
We expect the Fed will raise the rates. Does it remind you of 1970s?
Everything that happens in the investment world reminds me of something or other. I mean, every day. If it's a boring day, it reminds me of something. I mean, but I don't think that way. All I'm trying to do is buy businesses. Let's pretend there is no stock market. Let's say I had to buy these privately, like you buy a farm privately, like you buy an apartment house privately. They're investments. So you're looking to say, what can I do with money I've saved to put it away so I feel good about getting it back later under any circumstances, but not necessarily on a given moment. But if I have a farm, it's going to take me a while. But people would be so much better if they actually didn't have a stock market in terms of buying businesses. But,
You made two huge investments recently. One is Activision.
No, we have two fellows in the office that each, they manage a total of about $30 billion between them, Ted Weschler and Todd Combs.
Two people you chose.
They've been with us for about 10 years each. They have total authority over the money they invest. They're just as independent in buying things as I am. I mean, if they decide to buy something in a country I've never heard of in the stock, I mean, they don't ask me. I mean, they don't.
But are you saying that maybe they were decided to?
Well, I've actually
investment in Activision.
I've actually said that one of those. I've said it very clearly, and there's a letter on the website that describes exactly the circumstances because they got misreported in the press originally, and so I have written a letter there because actually a number of other first-class news organizations picked up a story without checking whether it was true. I mean, they ran with it without independently reporting it. So they're one. I'm not going to name names, but there's some names in my letter. But they just ran it wrong, a wrong story, which had implications and so on. So the letter is up there. It's going to stay posted forever because it's the correct record. And what happened precisely is that one of the other fellows decided to buy Activision. Didn't ask me, and it's fine. I mean, but he bought it. He bought about I think I used a figure of 85%. I think when we double checked it, it was 76 or 7%. But we'll list every day that he bought it and the price he bought it, and the price was reported as wrong by the press, and then it was picked up by a whole bunch of other organizations and printed as wrong. And so millions of people read an incorrect story, and so we put up the correct facts, and we'll have at the annual meeting. I think I'll have a slide if anybody asks me for it. It'll show every day's purchases and the exact price, and that was done by one of the fellows in the office. Now, and that was, like I say, 77% was in October, and the rest was in early November. And he paid about $77 a share, and you can buy it today. And Microsoft announced it. The first story said weeks later, which makes it sound like 2 or 3 or 4 weeks later. It was probably 12 weeks later. You could say months later.
So the investment was months before Microsoft decided to acquire Activision.
The other guy liked it as a stock, as a business. And so he was buying it. And he paid an average of, like I say, $77 a share. And we will have a list of every day at every price. And then I guess it was, there was a big expose type story run, but he wasn't buying during any of that period. And then the preliminary proxy came out. It's been filed with the SEC by Activision, describing the history of the deal as to when Microsoft came to them. And it was sometime in a couple months later that Microsoft first approached Bobby Kotick, and then 4 other people came. You can read it all; it's filed with the SEC. And then after it was announced, you could buy the stock at $78 a share. So the implication, the first story was that it was somehow that somebody made a great deal by getting tipped it off or some damn thing.
Simply
you
not
could
true.
have bought $1 a share. You could have bought after it was announced higher than one of the other fellows paid for about. He bought about close to 15 million shares. He still got it.
How about Occidental?
Well, Occidental, a week ago, a couple of years ago, we financed Occidental.
And had some warrants coming out of that.
Vicky Hollow, who I'd never met before. And I got a call on a Friday, and Bank of America saying that Occidental was going to need some money to buy Anadarko, and I think it was known then they were in competition with Chevron. And would I meet with them because they needed a lot of money fast? And I said, sure. How about tomorrow? And went back and forth. Turned out they came up Sunday instead of Friday, and we met at 10 o'clock in my office on a Sunday. And I said, we'll give you $10 billion under these circumstances, but we'll do it. We'll do it tomorrow. And that's not Wall Street, but that's Berkshire. And so, and they knew I was good for it. And so we made a deal. Monday night, the next day at night, I told our guys, you work all night. Cravath works all night for them. And we get this thing done on Tuesday.
But is there much negotiation, or you simply say, this is what I will do?
This is what I'll do. I always say that's what I'll do. I mean, I've said that's what I'll do many times. And I've always, and that is all I'll do.
But this is what you have come to represent. I mean, think of the financial crisis and think of Goldman Sachs. And think,
I said what I do.
You said what you do, but it gave them credibility when they needed it, that Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway had decided to have confidence in them.
We were putting in X billions of dollars And there wasn't any question we were putting it in. It wasn't an IOU or anything else. We sent them the cash. And it was right after Lehman. And there was a run on the whole economic system. Everybody was a domino. And the dominoes were falling. And Goldman Sachs knew they'd be fine if all the dominoes didn't fall. And they had to worry about the United States Congress because they were really mad at banks. This time they weren't mad at banks in this particular case, but they were mad at banks. And they really didn't, some of them didn't fully understand what the hell was going to happen. And we had that.
They were mad because this was a financial crisis.
It was more than, I mean, it was a financial crisis cubed.
But it had an origin in financial institutions.
A lot of people did a lot of things wrong, but there was plenty of it in Wall Street. Plenty of it in Wall Street. But there was plenty of it elsewhere too. I want to emphasize that. But Wall Street made a lot of money out of doing a lot of things that contributed to the crisis.
Here's my point. Berkshire and Warren Buffett emerged to a point where your reputation and your credibility
and our money.
And your money.
The money was important, but it was a determining factor.
They wanted the money.
Yeah.
But they also wanted credibility.
They had to have instant credibility.
And that's what you gave them.
They had to have somebody who counted besides people whose position it was to lie.
And how did you build that? Which is an essential part of who you are and Berkshire Hathaway is.
Well, I started on March 11th, 1942.
As we talked.
And I had a father that was the right father. Yeah, and I was lucky.
I think you may have heard this. Lenin once said, there are decades when nothing happens, and then there are weeks when decades happen.
That's very well put. And when you're buying businesses, don't call them stocks. When you're buying businesses, when you're buying apartment houses, sometimes when you're buying raw land, all kinds of things. There's times when you get a chance to act and do something really intelligent. May happen once every 10 years, once every 20 years. Depends on what field you're in, where you live, what you know, all of that. But most of the important things, there's a lot of foundational work, but the actual big acts in life are when you propose to your spouse. I mean, forget all the other stuff. I mean, if you made the right decision and you get the right answer from he or she, you're 90% of the way home in life.
But also things happen in the world, like the pandemic.
That's true, too.
And it can change everything, as it did.
It happened in 1929.
It happened in 1918,
I forget when the things were, 1907. I mean, when they closed the stock exchange back in 1914 for a long period of time. People don't ever think about that. 9/11, they closed the stock exchange for a few days. And there are big events in this world.
We're going through one of them right now.
Yeah, but I won't get into discussing that particularly.
Allow me this. I mean, this is having a huge effect on the world order.
Yeah, but it doesn't do me any good, and it doesn't do the world any good for me to talk about it. So,
Can we talk about the global economy then? In terms of where we are.
I can tell you where we are, but
let me phrase it this way: in terms of the global economy. I mean, you look at the United States.
United States economy, and it's very easy to look at the statistics on it. I mean, more people, a greater percentage of the American population is wealthy now, or having more income now than they've ever had. And if you look at whether Bank of America will give you their average deposit, I mean, you just look at the wealth and that doesn't mean everybody's wealthy, but it does mean relative to any other period of time. people have more money now. They get mortgages at lower rates than they've ever gotten. So if they want to buy a house or something,
but is that going to continue? I mean, mortgage rates are raising, as you know.
Yeah,
we're in an inflationary period.
I'm not going to predict interest rates for you. But I'm not asking
you to predict anything about stocks.
But right today, Charlie.
You live in an environment.
Yeah, you live in an environment where the bottom 2% in terms of income in the United States, the bottom 5%, and for sure the top 1%, all live better than John D. Rockefeller was living when I was 6 years old. John D. Rockefeller was the richest man in the world. And today, you can get better medicine, better education, better entertainment, better transportation. You can do everything better than he could. You can, it's astounding. That's in my lifetime. That if you wanted to watch a football game, he still had to go there. and I can sit there with this big screen, and they keep showing me the replay, so that explaining to me what happened and everything. And maybe everybody doesn't have a screen as big as mine, but damn near everybody has a screen or an iPhone or a computer or access to one, and they have access. I mean, when I was born, the dentist didn't use Novocaine. When I went
so there has been progress, obviously.
In medicine.
And nowhere more than in the United States.
Well, relative to the base, maybe more than, but there's no country that's done what our country's done. If you go back 3 of my lifetimes, you're looking, you've been to colonial.
You're 91, so.
It's 3 lifetimes. You are looking at less than 1% of the world's population, closer to half of 1%. Half of 1% of the people in the world are sitting in this land. They don't work harder than people in all the rest of the world. In terms of hours of unpleasant labor, everybody's got hours of unpleasant labor in those days practically. They don't come laden with gold and, they are half of 1%. And they work the same hours, they got the same IQs. They may be a little self-selected in terms of enterprise, in terms of going across oceans and things. And fast forward a couple of lifetimes, and they've got 20% plus of all the bounty in the world. That is something that has worked like nothing. Just imagine that. If you'd gone to anybody, the Constitutional Congress in 1789, if you go to any one of the representatives there, and you said, I want to tell you what this place is going to look like, in 3 more of your lifetimes, your great-great-grandchildren, are going to be flying in the skies. They're going to be watching sports all over the world. They're going to be entertained. Their medicine. They'd have held you off to a lunatic society.
But at the same time, as you know, and you hear this all the time, 845 billionaires in America.
Yeah.
And they have more wealth than the bottom 60%.
That's true. Well, and that's up to government. Government has a proper place in the capitalism, believe me. And government's the rule maker. But Henry Ford, by 1922 or 3, he was turning out 2 million cars a year. Now, how many could the Ford family use? 30, 40, I don't know. So 2 million people are getting the benefit of what he's doing. And he's getting 30,000, he's getting 50 cars, and he's getting a whole bunch of little claim checks. Just think of it. Everything, when Thomas Edison did all the things he did, he made some money. But look what we benefit. We're using it.
Yeah.
It belongs to us, and it doesn't. If you take what an hour of labor delivered to you 100 years ago, and what an hour of labor delivers to you now for you and your family. It's unbelievable.
But that's an argument for the forward progress
That's an argument
of civilization.
It's an argument
and for
capitalism, but it does. Capitalism doesn't say get rid of a referee and a government. We've got a government that can tell capitalism what to do.
Do you think?
And they do, and that's what they should do. And they do it in different ways at different times and all kinds of things. But I've got this money which I'll never. I can't. It's. But it has value to somebody. I mean, it's claim checks on future output. That was in it. The claim checks belong to me. So if I want to buy 50 super yachts, I can do it. But what does it mean to me? It can buy more things for other people that are useful to them. And I have everything I want in life, everything. So it's not evil, but the federal government is the boss in the end. And they shouldn't screw up capitalism, and capitalism shouldn't screw up the federal government. It's very simple.
But does capitalism need to be reformed itself? As you know,
it's evolving, always. We started in 1789. We had business, and it's gotten far, 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 unbelievably more productive for people. And the only thing it can do with what it produces is give it to other people. It isn't like the 50 richest guys in the country can say, I'm just going to eat everything. They're turning out products. That iPhone that I have, which I'm probably the least capable guy in the world of working with it, but it makes life better.
It is the reason that Apple is the richest company in the world.
Yeah, and you've had Tim Cook on before, and you can hear as a company that a guy invents something, and all kinds of other smart people do the same thing. Apple, I think, sells less than 25% of the smartphones in the world. I know a guy that produces as many as Apple does. But Apple has produced the one that's the most useful to people. It's an aspirational product. Somebody, a lot of people have made cars, but you got a few survivors that made the ones that people like the best. And, we would be selling 16 or 17 million cars a year in this country if we had 50 producers, or whether we got 3. We never used to have.
But here is an interesting fact, as you know. Tesla has more market value than all the other automobile companies combined.
Yeah, Elon Musk.
What does that say?
That shows what America produces.
Elon Musk?
Elon didn't, he's taking on General Motors and Ford and Toyota and all these people who've got all this stuff, and he's got an idea. And he's winning. That's America. You can't dream it up. It's astounding. Now, you still need a referee.
Yeah. That's the government.
Yeah, sure. And you need a judicial system, and but that comes with government. And we've got the best, so far, we've got the best system. We've got a better system than we used to have, and we'll have a better system 50 years from now.
Why are you so sure?
Well, I've seen 91 years of it. I've never seen a period where I didn't believe that. And I haven't read
that it will get better.
Of course.
In every aspect of it.
Not every aspect. We can go backwards in some. No, it's not. But it's unbelievable what has happened. Just think of it. We've had a civil war. We've had a Great Depression. We've had all these things.
Pandemics.
We've had, and we'll continue to. We'll have, I'll guarantee you we'll have something, next year and the year after and the year after. But in a herky-jerky but dramatic matter, business moves forward, government moves forward, more important, people move forward.
The thing that you fear the most, and you have said this, is nuclear war.
Yep. I think it was Einstein, maybe it was Bertrand Russell, this one, but he said, this changes everything in the world except the way men think.
You don't want to talk about the current situation where one of the questions is, what if we end up with a World War III and a nuclear catastrophe? Is the reason you don't want to talk to me about it because you don't want to be quoted and people...
I don't want to talk about it, but I've talked about nuclear catastrophes in the past. And the truth is that, well, it was Einstein that said, I know not what the weapons of World War III will be, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. And that says it all. We've got the power, and other people have the power, to essentially destroy the planet. And climate change is important in all of those things. I mean, there's all kinds of things we should be working on. But in the end, the only thing tomorrow, I mean, I guess a comet could hit us or something, but we can destroy that. And it's not just us. We can end the planet. And and I don't want to talk about much more beyond that. I don't like saying that to people even, but it's true. It was true when Einstein said it. I mean, it's been true. We came close in the Cuban Missile Crisis.
And it is being talked about now.
I'll let you talk about it.
No, I hear you. But let me, before we leave capitalism, in a sense, do you see any changes that businesses ought to do because, there is, on the part of Larry Fink and others.
There's always things going on. And
where does Warren Buffett come down on that argument?
I will be talking about a lot of things on April 30th at our annual meeting. And that's when I'm talking to all of our shareholders at the same time. And
the people who've trusted you to manage their
money. There'll be 40,000 in attendance, and it'll be taken around the world. And that's when I can talk to all, if they want to listen in, every one of my partners can hear at the same time on a Saturday. So the stock market's not open until Monday. And so they can digest it or they can watch replays or anything else. Because they can watch it on, CNBC will be sending it all over the world.
Watching is not like being there.
No, well, it isn't for a lot of people. Yeah. But we're going to have, in my view, if it were held today, well, who knows what April 30th brings, but we will have, I think, from everything I hear, we're going to have the largest group come to Omaha, I think, ever, and I sure hope so.
Do I hear you, and you can tell me I'm wrong here, that all those things that I might want to hear and your partners might want to hear and everybody wants to hear, A, because you're a student of history, B, because you have written about the evolution of history in annual letters as well as in answering questions at annual meetings. But on the questions of war and peace, and questions of New World Order, on the questions of sanctions, on the questions of inflation, all those things that I'm enormously curious about, you're holding back talking to them until you choose the venue that you want to be.
And there may be there may be a lot of things I don't feel I should talk about at that time too, but that is going to be a very, very important meeting. And I get that time to take all these people who trusted me with their money, trust me with their future, and I talk to them at the same time. And they can ask questions that they can be impertinent. They can do anything they want with us. And I love it. And Charlie loves it.
But you understand my curiosity.
Oh, of course.
But do I understand this is an important moment? This is a moment to speak to, and we're in a crucial time.
Yeah, but we've been in lots of crucial times. We were in a crucial. At 9/11, did we think we were in a crucial time?
Sure.
The world changed in 5. And I didn't know how it had changed. The President of the United States didn't know how it changed. Nobody knew what the hell was going to happen.
I want to know how Warren has changed from decade to decade to decade. Do you have a sense of that?
I've gotten dumber, but I've gotten wiser.
Okay, that's a nice phrase. But what does it mean?
It means that I can't add a group of numbers remotely as fast as I used to be able to. I can't remember sometimes when I walk upstairs what while I'm walking up the stairs, I'm thinking about something else. So by the time I get to the top of the stairs, I don't remember why the hell I walked upstairs. It means I forget names so easily. It means that I can't read as fast as I used to read. I am a decaying machine that still feels wonderful. But I can't hear as well. I can't see as well. My balance is as good, but it doesn't interfere with my happiness, my work, anything.
Especially your work. Well, I mean, clearly your happiness, but it doesn't, you're
It
saying,
doesn't interfere with
notwithstanding
It doesn't interfere with anything.
that ages.
I can get on a plane and go anyplace. I can do anything as long as you don't ask me to dance. Or juggle or even remember, who did I meet yesterday?
But in terms of doing the job that you do, allocating capital.
I can actually do that as well as ever.
As ever.
Yeah, that sounds obvious.
But better than that, do you do it today better than you did it 20 years ago?
Yeah, I've got a different set of opportunities.
And that gives you obviously,
well,
Berkshire is much bigger
and
than it's ever been, and therefore that defines the choices.
The size restricts the kind of things that can have an important effect on what I can do for the people who leave the money with me. So I can't earn the returns on capital with 500, billion or 600, whatever it may be to work with. Like if I do something brilliant, don't count on it, with $5 billion, it's 1% of my net worth. I mean, 1% of the net worth of the people I'm working with. And 1% doesn't move much, so I have to think about big things, and they're limited. I mean, I made money in an entirely different way when I was working with originally $10,000, $9,800 to be exact, and when I started working with other people's money, it was $105,000. In May 5th of 1956, I had $105,100 put into that partnership. And Berkshire is the outgrowth of that. I went to the house that I was renting it for $175 a month the other day. I just come back from New York, and there's a little room. I would say it's about 5 feet by 8 feet, and I'd written on the door because I knew the people that owned it earlier. This is where it all started, May 5th, 1956. And I worked out of that little room for 2 years and moved to the house. And then I got another little room. I worked there for 4 years. And everything I did could double our net worth. That doesn't mean that I could find them all the time. But I mean, there were thousands of possibilities, and I wanted to know every one of them.
And there are not thousands of possibilities now.
Can't possibly be. No, there aren't thousands of possibilities.
Not many whales out there.
Not enough, but there's some.
Is that a moment of great exultation when you realize that's a whale?
Sure.
I see something.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're looking for whales for months, you got to get some kind of thrill out of it when you find one.
Let me talk about something that didn't work. You and Jamie Dimon and Jeff Bezos came together. Healthcare is a huge part of our economy.
Yep.
And here we saw 3 really smart people representing 3 enormous institutions.
We had all the money in the world.
All the money in the world.
And we trusted each other.
Yes.
Totally.
And it failed.
Which was well justified. So I mean, we had as good a combination as you could have in terms of resources, flexibility, mutual interests, everything.
And what was the intent?
The intent was Well, we had several intents, but I mean, what we had an intent and we had a hope, and we knew the hope was nothing. I mean, we didn't know whether it was 50 to 1 against it or 100 to 1 against it, but what was the downside?
The problem was so big, it was worth trying.
Yeah, and what was the downside to us? Nothing.
Right.
Zero. Maybe we looked like we couldn't solve it, which is true, but that's okay.
Why couldn't you solve it?
Oh, it's three. You know, it's as big as federal government receipts. I mean, it employs more people, and it's not a terrible system. I mean, it is so much better than it was 20 years ago and 50 years ago and 100 years ago. So, I mean, we've got a wonderful medical system.
But we're fighting over it all the time.
Well,
I mean,
anytime you get a big pie in this country, people fight over it.
But I mean, as you know, until Obama did what he did,
Yeah, well, I think
Clinton failed, and then Obama.
No, I think what Obama did was good. I think it was a real important progress for the American people. And then the question is how to make it better.
And to make it better, what we need to do is A, bring the price down, and B, make the accessibility to it.
You've got to be sure everyone, a rich, unbelievably rich country
Like America.
can be sure that every single person not only has access, but feels he or she has access, that knows that he can get reasonably prompt. I mean, there comes limits with pandemics and everything, but reasonably prompt and if necessary, and essentially free. I mean, it isn't free in the sense that society doesn't pay for it, but the ability to get good medical attention reasonably fast, should exist for every American.
But it doesn't.
It's that simple.
It doesn't.
We do pretty damn well, but we could do better.
But we're not first in the world, or second, or third, or
well. I don't know about medicine, but I know what everybody tells me, and I believe them, that we are the best in a great many things. People come to the United States if they got a lot of money, and for a lot of things, there's no way it touches us, as I understand it. And
might do, but just to understand what you're saying, the quality of the medical care is as good as it possibly can be in terms of the best physicians, the best therapies, the best intelligence.
And great medical schools, and everything.
The access is the issue.
It's better than it's ever been, but it isn't. It's got room to go. I mean, it's better than it's ever been, Charlie. Most things, almost everything is.
Did any ideas come out of this?
Well, yeah, I think all three institutions learned something, and I think they actually, it wasn't that much money anyway, but we all got our money's worth.
Sure.
In the sense of just in terms of, we employ 360,000 people. Amazon, who knows how many they employ, and Jamie employs them. It's fantastic. So we all learned something, but we didn't have any breakthroughs at all. We just learned something.
Yeah. Here's what was interesting about it for me was the fact that these three institutions, led by these remarkable human beings, smart, successful, it was taking all that IQ and all that experience and applying it to a huge problem. And you ask yourself, are there other areas in which?
Yeah, well, you can say that everything we do in the country can be improved.
Right.
Education can be improved. I mean, everything.
Tell me, are there things that you think we ought to be talking about? I'm going to talk about climate in just a moment. Are there things that you think we ought to be talking about?
I mean, I am happy to tell people that the same thing I've told them before, but they'll never get the message, most of them, but a few do, that the most, best thing to do if you want to invest for the long term
is index.
And it's the S&P 500 index.
Right.
And what's happened, of course, is that organizations like to grow. So they set up indexes on different industries, different countries. And as soon as you do that, you're violating basically what Jack Bogle said. He says you don't know enough to pick the right businesses, which means you don't know enough to pick the right countries, you know enough.
All right, let me get to that. And that's something I want to get to. But we will see a time in which the Chinese economy is bigger than the U.S. economy.
Someday, they got 4 times as many people, and logically, they will grow and grow, and we're the 2 superpowers.
Are they going to grow as fast as they have been growing?
It's hard to tell. No, I don't know the answer to that.
But they've got some issues. They've got issues.
Sure.
They've got issues of.
I just.
They've got issues of debt. They've got issues of.
Everybody's got issues.
Demographics.
Yeah, everybody's got issues.
Yeah, those kind of issues.
Everybody's got issues.
They've got also issues.
We've had issues throughout the history of the United States.
They've also have issues of the environment and climate. The UN just released a report, and we have heard it, and we constantly hear it. How worried are you about our success in protecting the planet?
Well, the biggest threat, obviously, is nuclear weapons, but it doesn't mean you don't protect against other things.
Right.
And if there's a 1% chance, even, and it's way high, I can't quantify it, but if there's a 1% chance of something causing the world trouble, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, we ought to be working on that too.
Are we doing enough?
We're doing a lot. The problem is, of course, that it requires the whole world to do a lot.
There are a lot of problems like that, including the pandemic, including the environment,
Sure.
that transcend national boundaries
Yeah.
and need
Yeah,
cooperation.
The virus doesn't have to clear your immigration.
No, it does. The virus does not have to clear immigration.
No, that's that simple.
It can be brought
And
in
there's
by one person.
There's a lot of other things that aren't physical viruses.
When you look at Tim Cook,
I think he's terrific. It's that simple. I've written the annual report,
yes,
and he is.
he was a great manager.
He's not only a great manager, he's a great human being, but he's a great manager too. He's an incredibly great manager, but he's a great human being.
What do we look for in a great manager?
You look for him. You look for somebody that has
Results.
You look for somebody that has ability to trust and character.
Ability, trust, character.
Yeah, somebody you can trust. Same thing you want in a spouse. Charlie always says you want to marry somebody better than you are. He says in my case that leaves the whole world practically. But it's the truth. I mean, you always want to be around people who are better than you are. They pull you in the right direction.
What's the chemistry? What's the nature of the relationship between you and Charlie? It's a long relationship.
We met in May of 1959. His father died. He had worked in the same grocery store as I had in 1940. I worked there in 41. And we never met. I didn't know his name. And his dad was, well known in Omaha, but I just didn't happen to know. I was a kid, and we moved to Washington. And so it was a name
Your dad went to Congress.
I never heard his name until 1959. Or no, I heard the name when I met the Davis, maybe 57 or 58. He came to Omaha in 1959. We met. And it's been, the best relationship except others I've had, in family and so on. But it's been, he's been the person, along with Tom Murphy and a fellow named Joe Rosenfield, subsequent to my dad, that I didn't want to disappoint. Good to have somebody in your life you don't want to disappoint. It's enormously important. Makes you a better person.
Do you disagree on a lot of things, or
Well, we've never argued. We've never had an argument. People say, "Well, that's impossible." I'm telling you, we've never had an argument. Yeah,
but you could say, "I believe this," and he says, "I believe this." You just don't argue about it.
Yeah, but we don't even have to say it hardly. We may know where that I would say this or that. Why bring it up?
He, I think, has expressed some concern about index funds.
I support everything Charlie says, but I don't agree with it. I don't mean on that. I mean, it doesn't mean I agree with him on everything, and he doesn't agree with me on everything. And we've never had a problem with that since '59.
Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
What about him?
Jeff is a friend of mine, but I probably see him personally. I see him once a year, probably. Yeah, and I can't recall ever talking to him on the telephone. Maybe I have. Or I've never sent him an email. But I don't know how to send emails.
you know how to get them, son.
Yeah, no, I've got a system, but I don't. I literally don't know how to send an email.
You seem to have done okay without knowing.
So far.
But you once said to me, that he's one of the smartest businessmen.
Oh, absolutely.
And the proof is in the pudding.
I read his annual reports. I see him once a year. I've usually seen him once a year in Sun Valley. And I enjoy that. And actually, at Sun Valley, at the Allen and Company Conference, we've had a dinner that a few of us had in. And so I've probably had at least 3 or 4 of those.
It's remarkable to see a company which was founded on selling books now is a technological giant.
It couldn't happen, but it did. When Jeff was at McKinsey, I don't know whether they drove cross country from New York to Seattle, but if they'd stopped at Omaha, and they I didn't know him then, but he'd say, "What do you think of this idea?" Good luck, Jeff.
Yes, but you have told me that he at times would come up to you and have questions if you were making a presentation at a conference.
Yeah, at Sun Valley. Yeah. He's a very, very, very smart guy. And, I think, look, a good bit of his fortune is going to help society in various ways.
The Giving Pledge is?
Well, he's got his own plans on that.
But
Mackenzie's joined it. She wrote a beautiful letter. If you haven't read it, go to the...
Mackenzie's his former wife.
Yeah, and go to the Giving Pledge where we've got all the letters, and you will not read anything more beautiful than what Mackenzie has written.
And she's doing it.
She's doing it, yeah.
She's doing it.
It's not just talk.
She's really making contributions to...
She's doing exactly...
to black colleges and lots of other things.
Charlie, she is doing exactly what her inner self, and which she has expressed through the letter she's written, and some other things too, but the letter she wrote, The Giving Pledge, she's expressed a philosophy of life that I think is as good a model as anybody can find. And incidentally, I've only met her twice, maybe.
And Melinda Gates is also.
Yeah.
And Bill continues to make a huge impact on philanthropy.
And they do it,
and especially during the pandemic.
Not with just money, they do it with time.
They're on the scene.
They do it with time. They give up. Time is the most precious thing you've got, pretty much. And they do it with time. They are giving something. They're giving something I'm not willing to give.
Time.
That much time to that.
Yeah.
I'd rather give my time to Berkshire.
Because
that's what I enjoy doing.
And that's what you do well.
Yeah, it's what I do well, and it produces money, and that does well for other people, but it doesn't, it'll do better if it's given by other people than by me.
But that was a choice you made when you gave them.
Choice. situations. I mean, a long, long time ago in terms of Susie and so on. But yeah.
Right.
And it was, somebody's going to do something with the money.
And you
And those
felt
are claim checks on the output of others, productivity of the world. You can redistribute it to places where it's needed more. And I am all for that. I just don't want to do it myself. I'd rather do what I'm doing.
speaking of time, I have a few more minutes of your time. So let me ask these final questions. Have you achieved pretty much everything that you wanted out of life?
Well, the truth is, yes, but I'm looking forward to tomorrow too.
Any regrets?
Well, if you look back, you can always say, "Oh, I should have done this and that." But I'd be nuts if I look back on my life and said, "You haven't been the luckiest guy imaginable." And I will say this: aside from sickness and death, everything I thought was bad at the time has turned out well.
And when you say you've been the luckiest guy, I assume that means community and family, but it also means, in your case, as you have said often, the country that you live in.
Oh, totally. Charlie, if I'd been born any place but the United States, my life would have been totally different. And incidentally, it helped to have the parent I had to. But the United States is essential. It's given me everything.
And your dad was the man you most admired.
Yep.
Why was that?
Well, I never saw him do anything in his life that he didn't believe in. Turned out I didn't agree with him on things later on. I mean, I accepted this.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, when we sat around the dinner table in the 1930s, I mean, my dad was the most person you can imagine. So you almost had to say something bad about Roosevelt to get dessert, or something. but I mean, my sisters and I grew up with that. But that's okay. Yeah. He didn't. Anything I did, he supported, as long as I was behaving okay. And even when I didn't behave okay, he never gave up.
It came out this week that you are one of the 5 richest people in the world. On that list was ahead of you was Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and the man from France, Arnaud. What does that mean to you?
It means I can direct the way a whole lot of money goes just back to society. But what really means something to me is the record of Berkshire. That's what I've done. The money flows out of it, but I paint the painting. The world can bid on it at auction. But that is fun. And it's been fun. It's been way more fun doing it with Charlie as my partner than it would have been alone. I mean, it's incomparable.
So the legacy is Berkshire Hathaway.
Oh, sure. And it's my friends. And
that is a perfect segue to my last question. If you were giving one last lecture, what would you want to say?
Oh, I'd probably talk about what's been important to me in life and how they should decide what's important to them in life.
And so what's been important to you in life?
Well, it's all been, whatever it is, I've done it. But I've got a family I feel terrific about. I got a business, and I've got millions of people who have trusted me.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Charlie. It's always fun.